On Christmas night, a billionaire left me $3 billion in his will. I was only a tired nurse he had known for 6 weeks. His own grandson had tried to murder him for that same money. And it all started the day that grandson paid me to pretend to be his wife at Christmas dinner. My name is Emma Morgan, and this is how that insane night changed my whole life. Before I begin, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who loves dramatic real-life stories. It helps more people hear what really happened to me. The crispy $5,000 bills felt like they were burning through my purse as I sat in the passenger seat of Jake Morrison's Mercedes. My nursing scrubs were stuffed in my bag from a double shift. I'd barely had time to shower and squeeze into the elegant navy dress he'd picked out before he pulled up in front of my tiny apartment. "Remember," Jake said, knuckles white on the steering wheel, "we met at a charity gala 2 years ago. We've been married for 6 months. You love classical music, you're obsessed with healthcare reform. You don't mention anything about your real life. Got it?" I nodded and swallowed hard. The money in my purse meant 3 more months of mom's cancer treatment, 3 months of not choosing between chemo and keeping the lights on, 3 months of hope that the new trial might work. "And smile," Jake added, glancing at me with those cold blue eyes. My grandfather can smell fear. I forced a smile and tried not to think about how wrong this all was. I'd spent 12 years helping people, easing their pain, holding their hands as they faced death. Tonight I was going to lie to a dying man for money. Then I pictured Mom's face gaunt, tired, still trying to crack jokes when I visited. The doctor's words echoed in my head. Without this treatment, maybe 4 months. With it, a year. Maybe 2. 2 more years with her? I would crawl through fire for that. The Morrison estate appeared at the top of the hill, glowing with enough Christmas lights to guide planes. The mansion looked like it had stepped out of a movie. Ice sculptures, huge wreaths, garlands on every balcony. My stomach twisted. The front door opened before we even reached it. A butler in a black suit bowed slightly and led us inside. The foyer was wide and bright, with a 20-foot tree dressed in gold ornaments. Cinnamon and pine mixed in the air. "Jacob!" The voice was sharp and polished. A blonde woman swept toward us in a glittering dress that probably cost more than my car. "Aunt Diane," Jake said stiffly. "This is my wife, Emma." I reached out my hand. Diane's eyes slid over me from head to toe, dress, shoes, cheap clutch. She didn't take my hand. "How?" "Quaint," she said instead. "Jacob, darling, grandfather is waiting in the study. He's eager to meet your bride." Bride. The word made my cheeks burn. We followed the butler down a long hall lined with paintings. At the end, he opened heavy double doors. The study was all dark wood and leather armchairs, with shelves packed to the ceiling. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace. In front of it, in a wingback chair, sat Richard Morrison. I had seen his face on magazine covers, but the pictures didn't show the force of him. He was old. Yes, white hair, deep lines, but his eyes were sharp steel. Those eyes locked on me as soon as we walked in. "Grandfather," Jake said, his voice suddenly warm and fake. "I'd like you to meet Emma, my wife." Richard didn't answer at once. He just studied me. I felt like he was reading every lie written on my skin. "Come here, child," he said at last, his voice rough but strong. "Let me look at you properly." I walked closer. He held out his hand. His grip was firm, not like the weak hands of the patients I usually cared for. "You have kind eyes," he said, "and very tired ones. When did you last sleep?" The question surprised me. I work night shifts sometimes. At the hospital. It can be demanding. Hospital? His gray brows lifted. "Jacob, you didn't tell me your wife was in healthcare." "She volunteers," Jake cut in quickly. "Emma's very charitable." Something changed in Richard's face. His eyes went darker. "Is that so?" he asked softly. "Tell me, Emma, what is your volunteer work like?" My heart beat so loud I was sure he could hear it. I could stick to Jake's script, or I could tell the truth. I thought of Mom on her hospital bed, struggling to sit up when I entered the room. I thought of my patients in ICU, the ones who died with nobody but nurses there to say goodbye. "I'm a registered nurse," I heard myself say. "I work in the ICU. Lately, also in oncology." Jake sucked in a sharp breath behind me. "Oncology," Richard repeated. "That is heavy work. The hardest kind. Watching people fight battles they don't always win. Yes, sir, I whispered. It is. And yet you do it anyway. He nodded slowly. Sit down, Emma. I would rather hear about your real life than any pretty story Jacob created. Jake's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Christmas dinner was uncomfortable in a way I didn't know dinner could be. Richard insisted I sit next to him at the head of the long table. Jake sat near the far end with a cluster of cousins. Aunt Diane sat on Richard's other side, stiff and angry. Her husband, Gregory, looked like he was fighting a constant scowl. Jake's brother Marcus and his wife Vivian watched me like I was a science experiment. The table was loaded with food prime rib, glazed ham, roasted vegetables, mountains of potatoes, crystal glasses, silver that actually looked like silver. So, Emma, Vivian asked with fake sweetness, what did your father do? For work, I mean. I cut my meat carefully. He was a mechanic. Ran a small shop in Detroit until he passed away. The air seemed to chill. Gregory sniffed. How authentic. Richard turned his head, his eyes sharp. My father worked on a factory line for 9 years before he saved enough for his first business, he said quietly. He had grease under his nails until the day he died. He stared straight at Gregory. What is it you do again, besides spend my money? Gregory's face went red. Diane cleared her throat loudly. Grandfather, we hoped to discuss the family trust tonight, she said. The lawyers have been asking. I don't talk business at Christmas dinner, Richard said. Emma, how is your mother? My fork froze. My mother? Yes, he said calmly. Your mother, the one with cancer. My throat closed. She's fighting, I managed. Stage 4 pancreatic, but she's a fighter. The same thing that took my wife. Richard murmured. If there had been a treatment, I would have given up every cent I had to buy her 1 more year. His hand slid over mine on the table. How much do you need? The whole room went silent. I could hear the crackle of the fire. Grandfather, Jake started, standing. Emma and I should talk. I'm asking Emma, Richard cut him off. How much do you need for your mother's treatment? I stared down at my plate. The number sat heavy on my tongue. 200,000, I whispered. For the trial and for her care. Richard nodded once. Done, he said. No strings attached. Your mother will get what she needs. Diane choked. You can't be serious. You're giving money to a stranger who is clearly running a con with Jacob? Richard sighed, reached into his jacket, and pulled out a folded paper. Actually, he said, I had my lawyers check the marriage license. He opened the document and read, filed 6 days ago. Witness paid $500 to backdate it. Sloppy work, Jacob. Blood drained from my face. Jake's voice cracked. Grandfather, I can explain. You paid this young woman, Richard said, voice suddenly hard, to pretend to be your wife so you could access your inheritance. You saw my health failing and decided to speed things along. You took a nurse with a sick mother and used her desperation. Sir, I'm sorry, I blurted, standing from my chair. I knew it was wrong, Sit down, Emma, he said gently. You are not the villain here. And another's. He turned back to Jake. The kindness vanished from his face. You are cut off, he said. The trust, the shares, the property's gone. You will get nothing more from me. You're dying, Jake shouted. The doctors gave you 6 months. You can't just. I can do whatever I want with my money, Richard replied. And I will not reward a man who would poison his own blood to get to it faster. Poison. The words sat oddly on my heart, but before I could think about it, the room erupted. Diane screamed about lawyers. Gregory swore about gold diggers. Vivian hid behind her napkin and cried. Marcus tried to calm everyone. Richard slammed his cane on the floor. This dinner is over, he said. Everyone out, except Emma. Jake pointed at me, eyes boiling with rage. This isn't over, he hissed. Not for you, not for any of us. Richard didn't even look at him. He just waited until they all left in a swirl of designer coats and angry perfume. Then he sighed and sank back into his chair, suddenly small and old. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't mean to blow up your family. My family did that themselves long ago, he said. Tell me, do you plan to run off with the 200,000, Emma? No, I shook my head fast. I want to pay you back. I don't know when, but... He actually laughed. You stubborn girl. Consider it a grant, not a loan. Think of it as an investment in the only person at this table who still has a conscience. He rubbed his chest and winced. "Are you okay?" I asked, nurse mode switching on. "Any pain?" "Nothing unusual," he said. "Just tired. Would you stay tonight?" My night nurse called out. "It's lonely here." How could I say no? That night I stayed in a guest room bigger than my whole apartment. I called the hospital. The night nurse said Mom was sleeping peacefully. I cried with relief and shame into the soft pillow until my eyes burned. Around 2 a.m., a loud crash jolted me awake. I ran down the hall, heart pounding, following the sound to Richard's bedroom. The door was half open. He lay on the floor, clutching his chest. "Chest? Pain?" he gasped. "Can't breathe." I dropped to my knees beside him. His skin was cold and clammy. I checked his pulse, weak, irregular. "I'm calling 911, I said, reaching for my phone. His hand shot out and gripped my wrist. "Pills," he gasped. "Nitro, bathroom. But tastes wrong." "Tastes wrong?" I sprinted to the bathroom. A small brown bottle sat on the counter. Nitroglycerin. I twisted it open and looked at the pills. They were the wrong shade, slightly off-white. My gut twisted. I broke one open on a tissue. The powder had a bitter chemical smell that did not match what I'd seen thousands of times before. Someone had switched his heart medicine. "Don't take these," I said, running back. "Sir, someone messed with your meds." His eyes flashed with understanding and fury. I called 911, then started chest compressions. "Stay with me, Richard," I shouted as I pressed on his sternum, counting under my breath. "Come on, stay with me." The ambulance arrived in 5 minutes. We sped through the sleeping city, monitors beeping, oxygen mask over his face. I rode with him, never letting go of his hand. Between gasps, he managed, "Thank you," as Apollos Kos. At the hospital, they rushed him straight to the cath lab. I paced the waiting room in my borrowed pajamas, hands shaking. When the doctor finally came out, he looked impressed. "If you hadn't recognized the meds were wrong and started CPR when you did," he said, "he wouldn't be alive." Police officers were waiting in the hallway. I told them everything, the fake marriage, the cut-off inheritance, the switched pills. By 3 a.m., they had Jake in custody. In his apartment, they found the real nitroglycerin bottle and a different one filled with digoxin, strong enough to stop a failing heart, Jake confessed. The plan, the rage after dinner, sneaking back into the estate while the staff was busy and swapping the bottles, hoping his grandfather would die quietly in his sleep and that everyone would blame old age. Instead, he got charges: attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. For the next 3 days, I barely left Richard's side. He was angry, yes, but not at me, at himself, at the way he had raised his family, at the way greed had rotted them. "You saved my life," he told me on the 3rd day, when he was stable at last. "I just did what any nurse would do," I said. "No," he replied. "A lot of people would have taken the money and disappeared. You stayed with an old man who had every reason not to trust you. That is not just anything." 6 weeks later, he asked me to meet him at his lawyer's office. I walked in expecting a lecture. Maybe a neat contract saying I would receive nothing more, that the $200,000 for Mom was the end of our deal. Instead, Richard was there, standing beside the lawyer's desk, looking stronger than ever. "Emma," he said, smiling, "please sit." The lawyer slid a thick document toward me. "Mr. Morrison has redone his will," he said. "He wanted you to see it." I scanned the pages. And then I saw my name. My name. And the number 3 billion. "I don't understand," I whispered. "This must be a mistake." "It isn't," Richard said calmly. $3 billion. $1 billion in a trust for cancer research and treatment access. $1 billion to build a foundation for healthcare workers, scholarships, mental health support, decent wages, and $1 billion for you to manage how you see fit. "I can't take this," I said at once. "Your family will hate me. They already do." "My family," he said, "will receive generous trusts that will keep them comfortable. Not powerful, not dangerous. Comfortable." He leaned forward. "I spent my life building companies and watching numbers rise on a screen," he said. "You spent your life fighting for people in hospital beds. You know where the pain is, where help is truly needed. If I leave this money to greedy people, it will rot them further. If I leave it with you, it might heal someone." Tears blurred the words on the page. "Why me?" I asked. Because when given a chance to walk away, you didn't, he said simply. You stayed. You saved me, even after I found out you lied. You sat with a lonely old man at night when you could have been home sleeping. You loved your mother more than you loved money. That tells me everything. The lawyer cleared his throat. There is one more clause, he said. If any family member challenges this will, they automatically forfeit their own inheritance. They may accept it quietly or get nothing. I don't want to destroy your family, I whispered. You're not, Richard replied. You're giving them a choice. Accept that they are not entitled to everything, or walk away with nothing. Their character will decide. Mom's treatment started the next week. Private room, the best team, the experimental drug we never could have dreamed of affording. Within 2 months, her scans improved. The tumor shrank. Her color came back. She teased the doctors. She started eating real food again. One afternoon, I sat at her bedside and told her everything about the will, the foundation, the $3 billion sitting like a storm cloud over my head. This doesn't feel real, I said. It feels wrong to have so much when I spent years counting coins for parking at the hospital. Mom squeezed my hand. Your father always said the universe puts the right people in the right place at the right time, she said. You didn't steal this money. You earned Richard's trust. You saved his life. Now you get to save others. That sounds right to me. 6 months later, we launched the Morrison Foundation for Healing and Hope. Our first projects, ICU expansions in poor areas, scholarships for nursing students, free mental health care for overworked staff, funds so families didn't lose their homes while paying for cancer treatment. At our first big event, I stood on a stage looking at a sea of faces, nurses, doctors, patients, families. Richard sat in the front row, looking proud. Mom sat beside him, now in remission, clapping her hands like a child. After my speech, a young oncologist with warm brown eyes came up to me. I'm James Chen, he said, shaking my hand. I just got a grant from your foundation. I read your story in the paper, the Christmas dinner, the fake marriage, the will, all of it. It reminded me why I went into medicine. We talked for half an hour, about patience, about feeling helpless, about trying anyway. Real hope fluttered in my chest again. Hope not just for strangers in beds, but for me. Richard caught me watching James later and chuckled. Live your life, Emma, he said. Don't let money or guilt chain you. My grandson tried to kill me for wealth. I'd rather see you use it to build love. Jake went to prison for 15 years. Diane and Gregory took their trimmed-down trusts without a fight once the lawyer explained the clause. Marcus surprised everyone. He apologized and asked to help the foundation teach financial literacy to families drowning in medical debt. The Morrison family shrank, but it also healed. A year after that first event, James asked me to marry him. The wedding was small. Richard walked me down the aisle. Mom cried harder than anyone. During the reception, Richard raised his glass and said, Emma walked into my life on the night my own blood tried to kill me. I thought I was at the end. She gave me a reason to keep going. She showed me that real family is not about DNA or money. It's about who shows up when everything falls apart. People wiped their eyes. I did too. Later, when James and I swayed together on the dance floor, he whispered, Thank you for saying yes when that idiot offered you money to play wife. Look at us now. I laughed. If you ever pay me to be your wife, we're getting a divorce. Artifust. Int 5. He grinned. Deal. Across the room, Richard spun Mom slowly in a circle, both of them laughing. The foundation logo glowed on the wall behind them, bright and hopeful. Jake had tried to turn my desperation into a weapon. He thought money was the only thing that mattered. Instead, his plan led me to a new family, a purpose bigger than I ever imagined, and a love that felt safe and real. The universe has a strange sense of humor. And sometimes, when you least expect it, a deep sense of justice too. If you enjoyed my story and want more true-style billionaire and nurse stories like this, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, drop a comment, and share this video with your friends and family. Your support helps me keep telling these emotional stories and gives more people a little hope.